The Thanksgiving turkey was still warm on the table when Liam placed the document in front of Maya, the words prenuptial agreement, slicing through the holiday cheer like a knife. The scent of roasted sage and cranberry sauce, which had moments ago filled the dining room of the Sterling estate in Beacon Hill, suddenly turned sour in Maya's throat. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the first snow of the Boston winter was beginning to fall, dusting the cobblestone streets, but it was nothing compared to the chill settling inside the room. Maya touched the small, tarnished silver locket around her neck, a gift from her grandfather, seeking a grounded connection in a room full of people who looked at her like she was a stain on their pristine tablecloth. "We didn't want to bring this up during the pumpkin pie," Patricia Sterling said, dabbing the corner of her mouth with a linen napkin. Her smile was tight, the kind that didn't reach her eyes. "But Richard and I felt it was crucial to settle these practical matters before the wedding planning goes any further." Richard Sterling, sitting at the head of the long mahogany table, nodded in agreement. He didn't look at Maya. He looked at his son. "It's standard procedure, Maya. You have to understand. The Sterling legacy has been built over 4 generations. We have a duty to protect it from unpredictability." Maya looked at Liam, her fiancé, the man who had proposed to her under the cherry blossoms in the public garden just 3 months ago. She expected him to laugh, to push the folder away, to tell his parents that their love wasn't a business transaction. Instead, Liam avoided her gaze, swirling the amber liquid in his crystal glass. "It makes sense, Maya," he said softly, his voice lacking the conviction she needed. "It's just paper. It keeps things clean." "Clean," Maya repeated, her voice steady despite the thumping of her heart. She opened the folder. The legal jargon was dense, but the message was clear. Patricia leaned forward, her pearls clicking against the table. "Let's be honest, dear. You come from a very different world. Statistically speaking, people from your community often struggle with the management of significant assets. We just want to make sure that if things don't work out, you leave with exactly what you brought in." Maya's eyes scanned the pages until she found the clause Richard had pointed out. In the event of divorce, Party B waives all rights to alimony, property division, and any appreciation of marital assets. Party B. That was her. The woman who taught preschoolers how to share and be kind was being reduced to a liability to be neutralized. They weren't just protecting their money. They were codifying their belief that she was worth nothing. "So," Maya said, looking directly at Liam now, "if we are married for 20 years and have children, and you decide to leave me, I walk away with my teacher's salary and my old Toyota?" "That's what this says." "It says you aren't marrying him for the money," Richard interjected sharply. "If your intentions are pure, the document shouldn't matter." Liam finally looked up, his blue eyes pleading with her to just comply, to make the awkwardness go away. "Just sign it, Maya. Prove to them that you love me, not the Sterling name. Don't make this difficult." The betrayal stung worse than the insults. He wasn't her partner. He was their son. Maya closed the folder. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. She thought of her own grandfather, a man who had scrubbed floors so she could stand tall. She wouldn't bow. Maya stands up, trembling not from fear but from suppressed rage. "I'll take this to a lawyer," she says, walking out into the snowy Boston night alone. That was a heartbreaking betrayal, but Maya's journey is just beginning. If you're enjoying the details of this story so far, do me a favor and comment the number 8 below so I know you're here with us. And please make sure you are subscribed to Black King with the bell turned on. We have so many more amazing stories coming your way. Your support is what keeps this channel alive. Now let's get back to the story. James Morrison's law office smelled of old leather and justice, a stark contrast to the Sterling scent of expensive perfume and condescension. Maya sat on the edge of the plush wingback chair, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, watching the older man read the document. James had been her grandfather's attorney and only confidant for decades. He was the only person in Boston who knew that Maya King wasn't just a preschool teacher struggling to pay rent. He knew about the trust fund, the real estate portfolio, and the legacy Marcus King Sr. had built from the ground up to ensure his granddaughter would never have to bow to anyone. James lowered his reading glasses and let out a sound that surprised Maya, a dry, genuine chuckle. "Maya," he said, tapping the thick stack of papers with his pen. In my 40 years of practicing family law, I have seen some draconian agreements. This one is particularly nasty. They really wanted to make sure you couldn't touch a dime of the sterling money. Maya nodded, feeling the shame creep up her neck again. I know. It's humiliating. I should probably just call off the wedding. Well, you could, James said, a mischievous glint in his eye. Or you could look at the irony here. You see, this document states that all assets acquired prior to the marriage and all inheritances received during the marriage remain the sole property of the original owner. It waives all rights to community property. He leaned forward. Maya, you turn 35 in 3 years. That is when your grandfather's full inheritance unlocks. If you sign this, Liam and his family are legally barring themselves from accessing your $100 million. Maya blinked, the information sinking in slowly. She had been so focused on what they were keeping from her that she hadn't realized what she was keeping from them. So, if I sign this, it actually protects me? James nodded vigorously. It protects you better than anything I could have drafted because they drafted it. They are so blinded by their prejudice, so convinced you are destitute, that they've built a fortress around their millions while leaving the gate wide open for you to keep your billions secure. A slow, cold realization settled over Maya. She could walk away now, expose them, and leave. But a part of her, the part that still remembered the Liam who had courted her, wanted to know the truth. Was he truly one of them? Or was he just weak? She needed to know if he loved her for her, or if he just loved having someone he could control. I'm going to sign it, Maya said, her voice firm. I'm going to give him 3 years. 3 years to show me who he really is. That evening, Maya returned to the townhouse she shared with Liam. He was waiting in the living room, looking anxious. Without a word, Maya pulled the document from her bag, now bearing her signature, and placed it on the table. I signed it, she said softly, playing the role they expected of her. I don't want your money, Liam. I just want to be your wife. Liam let out a long breath, his shoulders sagging in relief. He didn't ask if she was hurt. He didn't apologize for his parents' cruelty. Instead, he pulled her into a hug that felt more like ownership than affection. Good girl, he murmured into her hair. Mom was worried you'd put up a fight. I told her you were reasonable. Now we can finally focus on the wedding. As Liam walked away to pour a celebratory scotch, Maya whispered to herself, yes, let's focus on the wedding. And the clock starts now. 2 years into the marriage, Maya realized that a ring on her finger didn't stop the world, or her husband, from treating her like she didn't belong. The novelty of the teacher marrying the tycoon had worn off for the Boston elite, replaced by a polite, suffocating indifference. It was a humid July evening at the Brookline Country Club, and the annual summer gala was in full swing. Maya stood near the edge of the ballroom, wearing a simple navy evening gown she had bought off the rack at Macy's, nursing a glass of sparkling water while Liam networked with potential clients across the room. She felt less like a wife and more like a prop that had been set aside once the photo opportunity was over. A tap on her shoulder broke her reverie. Maya turned to see an older woman, dripping in diamonds and wearing a scowl that seemed permanently etched into her face. The woman didn't look Maya in the eye. Instead, she thrust an empty crystal flute into Maya's hand. More champagne, dear, the woman said, her tone brisk and dismissive. And try to be quick about it. The toast is starting soon. Maya froze, the cold condensation of the glass seeping into her palm. I don't work here, she stammered, her voice barely audible over the jazz band. Before the woman could respond, Liam appeared at Maya's elbow. He didn't take the glass from her. He didn't correct the woman. He didn't demand an apology. Instead, he let out a nervous, charm school laugh. Mrs. Vanderbilt. So good to see you. My wife was just admiring the crystal. Honest mistake. He steered the woman away, launching into a conversation about bond yields, leaving Maya standing there, still holding the stranger's dirty glass. When he finally circled back to her, his whisper was harsh. Don't make a scene, Maya. She's an important investor. Besides, your dress is a bit plain. Next time, try to look less service industry. The drive home was silent, but the humiliation didn't end at the gala. Back in their cold, modern kitchen, decorated in stark whites and grays chosen entirely by Liam, the argument shifted to money. It always did. Liam had seen a charge on their joint credit card, which he strictly monitored, for $50 at an art supply store. I told you to ask before spending on the card, he snapped, unbuckling his new Patek Philippe watch, an $80,000 timepiece he had bought last week, to celebrate a good quarter. It was for my classroom, Liam, Maya said, her patience fraying. Some of my students don't have crayons at home. It's $50. You just spent $80,000 on a watch. Liam scoffed, placing the watch carefully in its velvet box. That watch is an asset. It appreciates. Your crayons are charity. And since I pay the mortgage, the car lease, and the bills, you need to cover your own little hobbies with your teacher salary. That's how this partnership works. I manage the wealth, you manage. Whatever it is you do. Maya retreated to the master bathroom, locking the door behind her. Her hands were shaking as she pulled out her phone. She opened a secure banking app, bypassed the two-factor authentication, and watched the numbers load. The market had been kind this year. Her portfolio, managed silently by James Morrison, had grown significantly. $117,450,000. She stared at the number. She could buy the country club. She could buy Liam's firm. She was the richest person in that ballroom tonight, yet she was treated like the help in her own marriage. She looks at herself in the mirror, wiping away a tear. Just one more year, she promises her reflection. Then the mask comes off. The countdown is on. If you're enjoying these details and want to see how this ends, do me a favor and comment the number 1 below. And please, don't forget to subscribe to the Black King channel with notifications on. Your support truly inspires us to create more great videos like this one. Ready to see the tables turn? Now, let's continue. Maya woke up on her 35th birthday not with the dread she had felt for 3 years, but with the quiet hum of a phone notification confirming a wire transfer of $117 million. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of the guest room, where she had slept for the last month, illuminating the screen of her old smartphone. She swiped away the notification and opened the household budget spreadsheet Liam forced her to update weekly to prove she wasn't wasting his money on frivolous things like classroom snacks or new winter boots. With a slow, satisfied smile, she deleted the file, closed the laptop, and whispered, "Happy birthday to me." That evening, Liam drove them to the Sterling estate for what he claimed was a family dinner. There were no balloons, no gifts, and certainly no cake. Instead, when they walked into the formal living room, Patricia and Richard were seated around the coffee table, which was covered in glossy real estate brochures. "Happy birthday, Maya," Patricia said, her tone devoid of warmth. "We thought the best gift we could give you was stability. We found a house for you and Liam." She slid a brochure across the table. It was a $3 million colonial in a gated community known for its exclusionary policies. "It's safe," Richard added, looking over his spectacles. "Better for when you have children. You want them to grow up around people like us, not the element you deal with at that public school of yours." Liam nodded eagerly, taking the brochure. "Mom and Dad are putting up the down payment, Maya. We just need to sign the mortgage papers." "I already told them yes." He hadn't asked her. He never asked her. He just assumed she would be grateful to be lifted out of her poverty. Maya didn't pick up the brochure. She reached into her purse and pulled out a single, crisp legal document, a property deed. She slid it over the glossy photos of the colonial. "Actually, we won't be needing your charity, Patricia. I bought a house this morning." Liam frowned, picking up the paper. "What is this? The Kensington estate?" "Maya, this is in Beacon Hill. It's listed for $8.5 million. He laughed, a nervous, incredulous sound. "Is this a joke? You make $45,000 a year. You can't even afford the property tax, let alone the house." "It's not a joke, and I didn't take out a mortgage," Maya said, her voice cutting through the room like a razor. "I paid cash." "Cash?" Richard sputtered, standing up. "From where? Did you steal it? Did you gamble?" Maya pulled out her phone, opened her banking app, and turned the screen toward them. The brightness of the screen illuminated their stunned faces. There, in black and white, was the balance. $117,450,000. "My grandfather, Marcus King, was one of the first black developers to buy real estate in downtown Chicago in the 60s, Maya said calmly. "He left me everything. I just couldn't access it until today. The room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. Liam stared at the phone, then at his wife, his face draining of color. You're worth $100 million? And here is the best part, Maya continued, turning to face Richard and Patricia. Remember that ironclad prenup you insisted on? The one designed to protect the sterling millions from the poor black girl? Clause 4, Section B, all assets acquired by inheritance or purchased with separate funds remain the sole property of the original owner. She smiled, a cold, dazzling smile. That means this house, and every penny in this account, is 100% mine. You have no claim to it. Not a single cent. Richard Sterling's face turned a dangerous shade of purple, his hands shaking as he gripped the edge of the table. You tricked us, he shouted. Maya leaned forward, her eyes blazing with 3 years of suppressed dignity. No, Richard. I didn't trick you. I just let you believe what you wanted to believe about people like me. And you were so arrogant. You never questioned it. The air in the room shifted instantly. Maya was no longer the charity case daughter-in-law, but the most powerful person at the table. For a moment, the only sound was the crackling of the fire in the Sterling's antique hearth, a stark contrast to the frozen expressions on their faces. Patricia Sterling was the first to recover, her survival instincts kicking in. She smoothed her skirt and forced a smile that looked more like a grimace. Maya, darling, surely we've had a misunderstanding. We didn't mean to imply you were incapable. We were just trying to help you save. We wanted to protect the family. You weren't helping, Patricia. You were controlling. Maya cut her off, her voice calm but ringing with authority. And you certainly weren't protecting the family. You were protecting your prejudice. You looked at my skin, you looked at my job, and you decided I must be poor, uneducated, and desperate. You couldn't fathom that a black woman could be standing on a foundation of wealth that dwarfs yours. Liam was still staring at the copy of the prenup, his hands trembling. He looked up at Maya, his eyes wide with a dawning horror. He finally did the math. Under the terms his parents had drafted to starve Maya in a divorce, he was now the one who would be left destitute. He had no claim to her house, her investments, or her future. The power dynamic had flipped so violently it left him dizzy. Maya, he stammered, I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed to know if you were the man I fell in love with, or just a clone of your parents, Maya said, looking at him with a mixture of pity and disappointment. I stayed for 3 years, Liam. I endured the snide comments about my hair, the assumptions that I was the help at your parties, the financial leash you put on me. I waited for you to defend me. Just once. But you never did. You were too busy being a Sterling. Maya picked up her purse. I'm leaving now. I'm going to my house. The one I paid for. She turned to walk away, leaving the deed on the table as a reminder of their arrogance. Wait. Liam scrambled up, knocking his chair over. He looked at his parents, really looked at them, and for the first time he saw the greed in their eyes as they stared at Maya's bank balance. He saw how quickly their disdain had turned to calculating hunger. I'm coming with you. Liam, sit down. Richard barked, his face red. We need to discuss this situation. No, Liam said, his voice cracking. There is no situation, Dad. There's just my wife, who I've treated like garbage for 3 years. He chased after Maya, catching her at the heavy oak front door. Maya, please. Let me come with you. I don't care about the money. I swear. Maya stopped, her hand on the brass doorknob. She turned to look at him, her eyes searching his face for the truth. Don't come because you're afraid of being poor, Liam. And don't come because you suddenly respect my net worth. She opened the door, letting the cold winter air swirl between them. Only follow me if you're ready to spend the rest of your life apologizing for the last 3 years. She stepped out into the night, not waiting to see if he would follow. Redemption didn't happen overnight. It was a long, winding road paved with uncomfortable conversations, therapy sessions, and the slow dismantling of a lifetime of entitlement. For Liam, the hardest part wasn't leaving the mansion that night. It was staying away when his parents tried to lure him back with promises of trust funds and country club memberships. But every time he wavered, he looked at Maya, who was building a legacy of her own, and he remembered the shame of that night in the library. He spent 2 years working alongside her, not as a boss or a benefactor, but as a partner, helping to launch the King Family Foundation, which provided scholarships to inner-city students who, like Maya, had been underestimated their whole lives. 5 years later, the sun streamed into the nursery of their home in Madison Park, a warm, lived-in house filled with laughter, not antiques. Liam sat on the floor, struggling to assemble a wooden dollhouse, while their 4-year-old daughter, Grace, supervised with serious intensity. "Daddy, the roof goes on top," she instructed, her curly hair bouncing as she pointed a chubby finger. Maya leaned against the doorframe, watching them with a softness in her eyes that had been absent during those first painful years of marriage. Grace was the perfect blend of them both, but she carried her great-grandfather's spirit, fearless and observant. "Mommy," Grace asked, abandoning the construction project to run over. "Grandpa Richard called. He said he bought me a pony. Can we keep it?" Maya exchanged a look with Liam. They had allowed limited contact with the Sterlings, but only under strict boundaries. "We'll see, sweetie," Maya said, smoothing her daughter's hair. "But remember what we talked about. Gifts are nice, but what's more important?" Grace scrunched up her nose, thinking hard. "Being kind. That's right. Kindness is the real wealth. Ponies are just ponies." Later that evening, after Grace was asleep, Liam walked into the home office where Maya was reviewing scholarship applications. He held a yellowed, crinkled envelope in his hand. "I found this while cleaning out the old filing cabinet," he said, placing it on her desk. It was the prenuptial agreement. The document that had once been a weapon was now just a meaningless stack of paper. "I want to burn it," Liam said quietly. "Or shred it. I don't want it in this house. We are partners, Maya. 50-50. What's mine is yours." Maya looked at the document, then up at him, arching an eyebrow. "You realize that means what's mine is yours, right? You technically have access to half of the King estate. That's a lot of zeros, Liam." Liam laughed, a sound that was free of the anxiety that used to plague him. "I don't care about the zeros. I care about the trust. I care that you know I'm not going anywhere, rich or poor." He picked up the paper and ripped it in half, then in half again. The sound of tearing paper felt like the final chain falling away. "Best mistake I ever made," he whispered, kissing her forehead. "It taught me what you were really worth." Maya smiled, looking past him to the framed photo of her grandfather on the shelf. The old man seemed to be winking at her. "Twice the worth, actually," she joked, pulling her husband close. "And don't you forget it."